In 2015, a 70-year-old George Miller returned to his most beloved franchise and created the weirdest and perhaps most well-regarded post-apocalyptic film of our lifetime. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mad Max: Fury Road. Witness me. Greetings, Designing Hollywood, movie fans, and beyond. I am your host, Oliver Ricketts. George Miller is one of the finest filmmakers we have working today. His catalog is extensive, dating all the way back to 1971, with picks for everyone, whether it be Babe, Pig in the City, or Happy Feet, or The Witches of Eastwick. There are so many flavors. The man is an institution. This being said, it is such a treat as a film fan to see such a storied director turn out a movie like Mad Max: Fury Road so late in his career. At 70 years old, George Miller shot this movie mostly in camera, out in the desert, with real cars, real stuntmen, and some of the most bombastic action I've ever seen in any movie. And folks, before we jump in, if you love Fury Road as much as I do, or you love Mad Max, or you just love movies in general, go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button to stay up to date on all of the great movie-related content we make here on Designing Hollywood. Fury Road today, for a large portion of the audience, including myself, is the George Miller film that we think of when we think of his iconic career. Instantly recognizable, instantly iconic, and made in what could perhaps be the twilight of George Miller's movie-making years. The only other example I can think of where something like this has happened with such a well-known filmmaker adding such an important piece to their filmography so late in the game would be Martin Scorsese in 2013 making The Wolf of Wall Street. He was also 71 years old. Some creatives just have it in them until the end, and it's never too late to make a piece that will define your work for generations to come. And as an artist myself, I find that so inspiring. And that brings me to our first question of the day. What is your favorite film from a late-stage filmmaker? This one is likely mine. And fast forward 10 years, and any movie fan will tell you that the hype is real for George Miller to return to the world of Mad Max this year with a prequel film in Furiosa. Which is very exciting to me, because if we think about the cinema landscape as it stands right now, we are getting so many prestige films this year, and namely prestige blockbusters. Huge filmmakers like Denis Villeneuve and George Miller are bringing us major blockbuster films that are responsibly budgeted, are not bloated, and are just absolutely treats for the senses in Dune 2 and Furiosa, which I am expecting to be an absolute religious experience when I walk into the cinema. Speaking of religious experiences, Mad Max hit in what are definitely my formative teenage years in 2015. I'm 26 right now. And it was definitely one of the first movie theater experiences that I felt this way about. In Mad Max: Fury Road, we see a dystopian future where resources are scarce. The fierce warrior, Imperator Furiosa, rebels against the tyrannical ruler Immortan Joe, leading a daring escape with his 5 wives in tow. Alongside her, the reluctant hero Max joins forces as they embark on a high-octane journey through the desert, battling ruthless warlords and facing the ultimate test of survival in a world gone mad. At this point, I have talked a lot in these reviews about science fiction cinema that just washes over you. But is there a more perfect way to describe this movie? Because Mad Max: Fury Road is an absolute roller coaster from start to finish that does not let you go until the credits roll. And at first, it's actually disorienting, because even if you are a pre-existing fan of Mad Max from before this film, nothing prepares you for what this is. We meet Max, and we find out right away that he has a daughter, or at the very least a child, in his life who has died and haunts him, drives him mad. Then we learn that it is the apocalypse, and the only thing that Max cares about, and I quote, is the primal human instinct to survive. Nothing else matters to him. Then we are exposed to a post-apocalyptic world that does not resemble our own, but also does not resemble the world that we see in the original Mad Max film, which this is still a sequel to. But the unfamiliarity doesn't matter. The movie never slows down to explain or dumb anything down to you. Everything here is tied to some basic societal norm that you've heard of. Except in this world, it's been cranked up to 1,000. And the movie trusts you to get it and to roll with it. And that's where they get that momentum, that great breakneck pace, because you never even have time to question what's going on in this film. As a sidebar, it is actually funny that the original 1980 Mad Max film is just a contemporary piece following a cop. Like, that movie takes place very much in our world. And after this movie, there's nothing in it that I think of when I think of Mad Max. There are no albino car Vikings, no desert storms, and no face cages. The 1980 Mad Max film is an entirely different flavor, and it was in our public consciousness for a long time. Long enough to make this film possible and a financial hit. But perhaps that shows the pure awesomeness that is Mad Max Fury Road. Because although it is so late in the game, not only is this movie career-defining for George Miller, but it is franchise-defining for Mad Max. If I ask you to think of Mad Max, you think of something from this movie, or possibly you think of Thunderdome.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Speaking of Mad Max, I would be remiss not to mention the phenomenal recast in this movie made to keep Max a young and albeit non-controversial man. And I appreciate the Tom Hardy recasting for so many reasons, other than the Mel Gibson of it all, which is a conversation for a different video. I just love that this is not a standard legacy sequel about an aging action star. It's not the same beats as a Star Wars The Force Awakens or an Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, where we're watching somebody who we know is a young man age horribly as they go through what is happening to them. And that can be a lot of fun. There are some great movies like that. This is less Harrison Ford returning to a character and more, it's just another day in the life of Mad Max. He's the same age as when we left him. Because of course it would be tempting to bring back the same guy from the 80s. The hero from Thunderdome is getting old. But Mad Max has bigger things to do and things we haven't seen in a movie before. It's bigger than a nostalgia trap, and for that, you can watch it as a sequel, or you could watch it as a totally rebooted film. You would get pretty much the same effect. And Tom Hardy is as good an action hero as not only Mel Gibson in the 80s Mad Max films, but also the other big action heroes of the time. There are heavy notes of John McClane or Ash Williams in this performance. But of course, this isn't truly his movie. This film belongs to Charlize Theron's Furiosa. She is the secret protagonist, and Max is just along for the ride. And as the secret protagonist, Theron is able to breathe so much life into this role. But of course it helps that she has phenomenal material to work with. But forget about the two leads for a second, because of course the real show stealer and best part of Fury Road's cast is Nicholas Hoult as Nux. Because this character goes from frightening to pathetic to funny to legitimately sympathetic all within this film's runtime. This is a complex performance that must be both dramatic and comedic at the same time. And it must also all be done while being covered head to toe in makeup. And every beat of it works. It is hands down my favorite thing about this movie. And we'd be remiss while we're talking about Nicholas Hoult to not mention some of the iconic dialogue from this film. Earlier this year, Dune director Denis Villeneuve stoked some controversy over on Twitter when he said the following: "Frankly, I hate dialogue. Dialogue is for theater and television. I don't remember movies because of a good line. I remember movies because of a strong image. I'm not interested in dialogue at all. Pure image and sound. That is the power of cinema. But it is something not obvious when you watch movies today." And understandably, this put film fans in an uproar. But at the same time, honestly, movies like Dune and more importantly, Fury Road help me understand what Villeneuve is talking about. Because dialogue is actually just a style choice. Can dialogue elevate a film? Absolutely. There are so many iconic lines from movies that remind me of why I love film so much.
No, I am your father.
And one great example would even be Dune Part 2.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
Instantly memorable and iconic. And Fury Road is another great example of a movie with a lot of instantly iconic lines that people can quote to their friends when they're talking about how great this movie is. It's just another element that puts a smile on my face when you see lines like this.
I live, I die, I live again!
But at the same time, Mad Max Fury Road is much more similar to Dune than a Quentin Tarantino movie. The priority of this film is that striking image that Denis Villeneuve is talking about. And while still being memorable, dialogue does take a back seat in this movie. But it's done to prioritize those striking images. Because really what Villeneuve was saying was that his style is to employ image over dialogue. And at least when it comes to Mad Max, it seems like George Miller's philosophy is largely the same. And while of course this all seems like a foreign concept to dedicated film fans, can we really argue with the results here? And of course, a big part of this is the immersion in this world. Everything feels real. We talk here a lot about set design and costume design. And that's because these elements are key to this movie and any movie's success. The costume design work here by Jenny Beavan is second to none. What each character wears or doesn't wear shows us where they fit into this society. And that's all costume design. Not to mention, every character from Max to Joe just looks so cool, and so much of that comes down to their clothes. And if you agree, you'll probably want to check out our Designing Hollywood podcast interview with Jenny Beavan, the costume designer for both Fury Road and Furiosa herself. We talked to her not only about this movie, but her extensive catalog of other films as well. She's a fascinating industry professional, and if you love how movies are made, it's not an interview you'll want to miss. So I linked it in the description below. Go check it out. All in all, Mad Max Fury Road is a moving, powerful action film that I cannot help but be sucked into every time I see it. And I can't wait for Furiosa because I have a gut feeling that I'm going to feel the same way about that movie. And if I do, I will be sure to tell you all about it right here on the Designing Hollywood YouTube channel. If you love films, you wouldn't want to be anywhere else on YouTube because we are all about celebrating cinema. For Designing Hollywood, I'm Oliver Ricketts, and until next time, get out there and go see a movie.